Thanks, Phil. Lovely to be here. I didn't vote to leave the EU, so if you did, this screw-up is on you. And it's on you because you were sold a pup, and a really, really poor one as well. I mean, look, those people who say that this was about controlling the border, and this was about not letting in people from Europe, but letting in loads of other people from all around the other side of the world, more than doubling the immigration numbers in this country. Complete disgrace. Grand Old Duke of York marching people up the hill only to march them down again. Politicians in this country have to be very, very careful with playing around with people's emotions like that. People voted because they wanted the numbers to come down, and they haven't come down. Do I want to go back? No, I don't, because I'm a Democrat. So despite the polling figures, and I'll just read them to you, YouGov last December 23, 52% of Britons believe that leaving the EU was the wrong decision. 57% would support joining the EU single market with free movement. 22% are opposed, and 72% want the UK to have closer ties with the EU. So do I, but I don't want to go back because I'm a Democrat, and there is no mandate to go back at all. Who apart from me realizes this? One, Keir Starmer. Now look, once he's got past dealing with the Taylor Swift issues that he's been having over the summer, he will get round to thinking about what he wants with the EU. He's talked about having a reset of the relationship. The mood music has changed, clearly. He's been touring European capitals. He hosted the European Political Community Summit in Blenheim Palace. So the mood music has changed. But there is a very clear reason why the Labour government will not go running back to the arms of the EU. And it's not because they don't want to increase trade and achieve growth, to Thomas's point. It is because of the raw politics of the situation in which they find themselves. Yes, they got a whopping big majority based on 33% of the popular vote. They know that it's wafer thin, and if they have a hint of wanting to go back, those seats on the red wall will be going the other way. And also, there's no point trying to suck up to the Southerners who voted Lib Dem. They've gone. Those 70 seats are gone. They're not coming back. They're with the Lib Dems. We call it yellow peril. Once they're in, they work really hard. They do loads of leafleting. They bore people's senses with their leafleting. But they stick around, the Lib Dems, right? So forget about it. It's done. So what can be done here? Three things that I think they're going to focus on. The first is around trade. So the point is this, that the trade flows between the EU and the UK are it's the most important trading bloc we have, right? So over 40%, 42% of our exports go there, 52% of our imports come from there. We need to have a better trading arrangement. Now, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement is there, but is it going to be a whole-scale rewrite? Are we going to join the single market? Of course we're not, because freedom of movement is not on the table. That is why Starmer, to be fair, is not entertaining this German youth mobility scheme, because he knows it's politically incendiary. It's not going to happen. So what we're going to have is the policy of tinkering around the edges. So far from Europhilia, this is basically a policy of Euro-agnosticism. The Labour Party vaguely wants to improve its relations with Europe, but it's not prepared to die in a ditch over it because it's not politically expedient to do so. So there'll be some tinkering around. There might be some chemicals agreement to avoid being part of the single market. But this is actually going to also upset the EU because they're saying on their side, what do you want? What do you want? You're coming here making the right noises. What do you actually want from us? This is not Woolworths. This is not the pick and mix approach to being part of Europe. What do you want from us? And we've got to be clear. And so far, they're not even entertaining. Labour's not entertaining the youth mobility scheme, and the EU's not entertaining a thing for touring musicians, which is, up to them. And I'm a DJ, right? It would probably help me if I could go around touring Europe without any issues. No frictionless issues, even though we only go around with a USB stick nowadays when we're DJing, but still. So that's one thing. The first thing is around trade and economics. The second thing is around security and defense. Now, here I'm a bit more hopeful because the EU needs us. And why do they need us? Because there's a war going on the eastern flank of Europe, in case nobody had noticed, in Ukraine, which is not exactly going in a particularly positive direction. The EU understands that we, as one of the two nuclear-armed states of European powers in NATO, are pretty flipping important, right? If the EU wants to sort out its security. And even Macron realizes this particular issue. So I do think there's probably going to be more cooperation around security and foreign affairs in that particular area. There's talk about a UK-German security pact. We'll see what the details of that are. But I do think that in an environment where the US election's only a few days away, we have no idea what's going to happen there. If Trump gets back in, all bets are off in terms of what happens with NATO, although I think his bark is worse than his bite. So I do think we have to be taking more responsibility for our own security in Europe. That is going to be a key thing, and that's a serious thing where the UK can play an important role. Now, I think the third element of this is around culture and environment. So on the environmental part of the policy here, this is a challenge that we all face. And I think that there's going to be potentially some cooperation that can happen there in terms of agreements, the way we go forward. We know that this is also high on the agenda of the new incoming Labour, the new Labour government, talking about greening the economy and everything else. They need to take people with them. We're seeing the problems that Europe has had with the rise of the AfD, partly around decarbonisation policy. But I do think that there are areas of cooperation there. And I also think there are cultural areas of cooperation, although I'm not hopeful with this youth movement scheme because, as I say, Starmer has vetoed it so far because he knows it will absolutely look appalling to actually be introducing freedom of movement. So, in conclusion, what is the Labour vision of Europe going forward? Not much. It's sort of incremental steps because it's too politically difficult and incendiary to do anything more radical. We'll see where they go. The music has changed. The devil will be in the detail, and the hard stuff comes when you're actually trying to negotiate amendments to trade agreements. We shall see where it goes.
Thank you.